several major AI players, coincidentally or not, depending on what you want to think here, have released some updated thoughts on how we need to approach AGI. So, OpenAI recently published an article titled How We Think About Safety and Alignment. In it, they bluntly state, quote, as AI becomes more powerful, the stakes grow higher. The exact way the post AGI world will look is hard to predict. The world will likely be more different from today's world than today's is from the 1500s. But we expect the transformative impact of AGI to start within a few years. They then outline their current thinking on how to develop safe, beneficial AGI. This is a process, though, that emphasizes the principle of iterative deployment. So basically, gradually introducing increasingly capable AI into real world settings, not keeping it bottled up in a lab. They argue that by releasing systems incrementally, we can better identify and manage potential risks. And they highlight several risks they're working to mitigate, like human misuse, misalignment, and broader societal disruptions. Anthropic also released its own recommendations on how to keep what it calls powerful AI, that's kind of their term for AGI, which they expect to emerge in the late 2026 or early 2027. They published this guidance on how to keep it safe. And their recommendations emphasize the urgency for the US government to prepare strategically for the economic and national security challenges that powerful AI will bring. They suggest a six-part approach that includes things like enhancing national security testing for AI systems and tightening export controls. On top of all this, there's a new report that came out called Superintelligent Strategy. It's making waves primarily for the people behind it. It's co-authored by Dan Hendricks, who's the director of the Center for AI Safety and an advisor to XAI and Scale AI. Also, Alexander Wang is a co-author, Scale AI's founder and CEO, as well as Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google. In this report, they propose a framework that mirrors Cold War nuclear strategies. They literally define this idea called mutual assured AI malfunction. And this is basically akin to the nuclear deterrence strategies used during the Cold War. And it suggests
Mutually assured destruction
mutually
is
assured destruction. Yes, the idea that we would both annihilate each other if even some
right.
of these
One nuke
weapons were
shoots, we
used.
shoot them all. That's
Correct.
the idea of yes.
And so this kind of builds on that idea, saying that any country that aggressively attempts to monopolize superintelligence will inevitably face covert sabotage by rival nations seeking to prevent a destabilizing imbalance. So they basically say, look, to enforce stability, they argue for, AI focused espionage, sabotage, and strategic transparency, verifying rival states' compliance without revealing sensitive information about how far along they are as we're designing really advanced AI. So, Paul, that is a lot to unpack. A lot of it is kind of terrifying, but I guess to really sum up what I'm taking away from this, OpenAI is like, guess what? Safety equals releasing this stuff. Anthropic is providing guidance, but the train is leaving the station. And we also have, literally treating this like nuclear weapons technology in terms of nation state competition. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no sugarcoating on this episode. Like, let's just be straight up. This is a problem. Like, there is a lot of very dangerous territory ahead, and anything that they're talking about already in super intelligence strategy and Anthropic's powerful, it's happening already. Like, this isn't this isn't 3 years from now. We should be thinking this way. This is like there's already leaders that are thinking this way. The all the AI labs know foreign actors are trying to infiltrate their systems, if not already being aware that they have infiltrated their systems. So, like in the US, we know that China and Russia probably are within our electrical grids. They're
Mhm.
probably within the infrastructure that powers the country. And in a similar way, we're probably in their infrastructures. And the whole idea there is like, don't take down our infrastructure, we don't take down yours. That's basically what this is. Like the labs know that the foreign actors will be trying to get access to their systems. The government knows this is happening. So they're they're fully aware of the national security risks of what they're doing. Um, the jobs and the economy thing, again, kind of bringing it back to that. Like Dario and Sam are fully aware that what they're doing, the thing they're driving, and not just them, throw Google in the mix and Meta and all the others, that they're the ones who are building the technology that's likely going to be massively disruptive to industries and professions, but they have no idea what it looks like. In this instance, OpenAI literally says, quote, the exact way, as you already highlighted, the exact way the post AGI world will look is hard to predict. The world will look likely be more different from today's world than today is from the 1500s.
That's a crazy analogy.
That's like Middle Ages, right? Isn't the
It's like,
1500s like
yeah, like,
14,
yeah,
1500s, like the
yeah,
Middle
but
Ages,
it's
13 to
right
50?
after. It's like, yeah, the early. I actually, fun fact, put this into Grok and a couple others. I said, look, here's what I am now, 38-year-old man in 2025. What if I went back to the 1500s? What would that look like? And it's just wild answers, like colonial England, or
Okay.
whatever. So,
There was that reminds me, we'll have to put the link in the show notes. Tim Urban wrote this great post about, like, AI, where it was I forget what he called it. It was that factor where you, like, things would be so different, you would literally just die. He's like,
yeah,
"If you go
yeah,
back to this period, you're just dead because you can't
right,
comprehend how different
right.
it is." Or, like, if you came forward from the past, you would get to that moment and be like, "Oh my god, like, I just died." Like, it's just nuts.
That's why I
Um,
mentioned it, how crazy this analogy is. And Sam
yeah.
knows what he's doing in it, or OpenAI
Yes.
knows what they're doing in it. Yeah.
So that means they think that, like, the next 5 years is so different. It's basically like taking a leap forward, like 500 years. So and the thing that's very clear now, as I said earlier, they're not gonna solve this. They're not going to sit down and play out what does a post-AGI world look like in education, in business, in your profession, your industry. They're not gonna do it, which means it's on governments, think tanks, associations, individual businesses, the consulting firms. Every research report I see out of consulting firms is asking people who have no idea about AI, what's the future of your business because of AI? So they go and, like, talk to a bunch of CEOs who themselves aren't really sure about it, certainly couldn't, like, tell you what AGI and ASAI are and, like, the impacts of it. And yet that's what the consulting firms are giving us, is like these predictions about 2030 based on who? Like people who've never sat down and actually thought about post AGI world.